In 1929, archaeologists excavating a ruined city in northern Syria found a stack of clay tablets still sitting in the kiln that had been firing them when the city burned. One of them said, quote, "The enemy is upon me, send me help." It was signed by the last king of Ugarit. He never sent it. Around 1200 BC, the Eastern Mediterranean held the most connected civilization the world had ever seen. Mycenaean Greeks with their stone palaces. The Hittite Empire in central Anatolia. New Kingdom Egypt at the height of its power. Great palaces linked by long-distance trade in bronze, textiles, oil, wine, and gold. Bronze itself required tin from Central Asia, thousands of miles away. Kings wrote letters to each other, calling each other brother. One ship, 7 civilizations. It carried 10 tons of copper ingots, 1 ton of tin, 175 glass bars, ivory from Africa, amber from the Baltic, and gold from Egypt. In 1982, divers off the Turkish coast found a shipwreck from around 1300 BC. It was globalization, 3,000 years early. In 1982, off the Turkish coast, sport divers found something old. A wooden ship, at least 3,000 years old, resting under 50 meters of water. Archaeologists spent 11 years excavating it, 22,000 dives. The cargo was Bronze Age globalization in a single boat. 10 tons of copper ingots from Cyprus. 1 ton of tin from Central Asia. 175 glass ingots from Egypt, ebony from Africa, Baltic amber, gold jewelry, swords from 6 different cultures. Between 1200 and 1150 BC, almost every one of these civilizations collapsed. The Mycenaean palaces burned. Linear B writing disappeared entirely. The Hittite Empire vanished. Ugarit was destroyed and never reoccupied. At Pylos, in southern Greece, the palace archive contains a set of tablets titled the OK Tablets. They are Linear B military dispositions. Coastal watchmen posted to look for enemies from the sea. The tablets were baked hard by the fire that destroyed the palace shortly after. Around 1180 BC, the city we now call Troy 7 was destroyed by fire. The archaeological evidence is unmistakable, a burn layer several meters deep. Some archaeologists believe this is the historical basis for Homer's Iliad. The Trojan War may have been one specific event inside a much larger collapse. New Kingdom Egypt survived barely and never fully recovered. In 1175 BC, Ramesses III fought the Sea Peoples at the Battle of Djahy. He carved the victory into the walls of his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. The relief shows Sea Peoples in feathered helmets falling at the pharaoh's feet. Egypt won the battle, but it was the last military victory the New Kingdom ever won. By 1150 BC, the Bronze Age Mediterranean world was gone. We have written evidence from inside the collapse itself. An Egyptian text called the Admonitions of Ipuwer describes total social breakdown. Servants dressing as nobles, nobles begging in the streets, grain running out. Egyptian inscriptions from Ramesses III mention the Sea Peoples. Invaders from the sea who attacked one civilization after another. For 100 years, that was the leading theory, barbarian invasion. But the Sea Peoples were a symptom, not the cause. Where were they coming from? Why were they moving? Modern science has reconstructed what actually happened. Pollen cores from Cyprus and Israel show a 200-year drought starting around 1250 BC. Recalibrated radiocarbon dating in the 2010s tightened the timeline. The drought did not begin in 1250 BC. It began in 1300 BC. By the time the palaces started burning, the region had already been drying out for a century. Speleothem records from caves in Turkey confirm it. The rain simply stopped. At the same time, earthquake storms hit Greece, Crete, and Anatolia. Multiple large earthquakes within a few decades. Palace centers cracked and burned. And when the palaces went, so did the trade networks. Bronze requires tin from Central Asia and copper from Cyprus. When you cannot get tin, you cannot make bronze weapons or tools. What replaced bronze was iron. Iron was harder to smelt, but the ore was everywhere. Every region had its own iron. The technology of the Iron Age was less advanced than the Bronze Age. But it was local. Nobody could cut you off from it. The transition took 200 years. Armies weakened, farmers went hungry. The Sea Peoples were not invaders from nowhere. They were refugees from collapsing societies further west, moving east looking for food. No single disaster caused the Bronze Age collapse. Drought, earthquakes, broken trade, displaced peoples, failed harvests, palace revolts. Each one alone might have been survivable. But the Bronze Age Mediterranean was too interconnected. When one node failed, it took the next with it. Archaeologists call this a systems collapse. Everything depended on everything, and everything fell together. The modern definitive book on the Bronze Age collapse is Eric Klein's 1177 BC, published in 2014. Klein's argument is that no single cause explains it. The collapse was overdetermined. Any one of drought, earthquakes, migrations, or trade breakdown could have been survived alone. But hitting the palace state system at the same time turned recoverable stress into total collapse. Everything east of Ugarit continued, everything west of it burned. Syria kept its cities, its records, its language. Its scribes kept writing cuneiform for another 800 years. Everything we know about the Bronze Age collapse in the east, we know because Assyria wrote it down. Assyrian tablets from the century after the collapse describe famine, refugees, and cities in ruin along the coast. New peoples appeared in the records: Aramaeans, Arabs, Chaldeans. The map of the Bronze Age was gone. A new map was being drawn. Assyria, further inland, less dependent on maritime trade, rode out the drought. One civilization survived. The clay tablet in Ugarit was never delivered. The city burned before the kiln even cooled. The tablets stayed inside for 3,000 years. It took the region 300 years to recover. Writing was lost, cities shrank, some places forgot how to build in stone. But on the Levantine coast, a merchant people called the Phoenicians developed something simpler: a phonetic alphabet of just 22 symbols. Anyone could learn it, everyone did. It became the ancestor of Greek, Latin, Arabic, and Hebrew. Every alphabetic script in the world today descends from Phoenician. The Greek Dark Ages lasted from about 1100 BC to 800 BC. For 300 years, no one wrote anything down in Greece. When they started again, they had forgotten Linear B, they had forgotten Mycenae. By the time Homer composed the Iliad, 400 years after the collapse, the entire Bronze Age had become myth. The Trojan War, the gold of Mycenae, the palaces, remembered as stories about gods and heroes, not as history. When Greek civilization eventually rose again, it did so without any memory of Mycenae. A scribe somewhere in a burning palace pressed one last message into wet clay. "The enemy is upon me, send me help."